Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's day 4 of our LAC Summit. We've got a whole week of sharing and learning, so please keep coming back again and again. And we have a really exciting session today with Katie Main. But before we jump in, I just want to take a moment to tell you a little bit about this summit and why we're doing it. So my name is Emma Burns, and I am the Professional Learning Coordinator at Consilience Learning, which is the organization that supports the Learning Analytics Collaborative, which is the sponsor of this event. And this is such a great opportunity to really show you what the LAC is all about, I think, because ultimately what we want to do is help schools to build a culture of data use and also to connect schools together so we can all learn and grow from one another. So this is a really authentic way to do that. And if you're not already aware, the Learning Analytics Collaborative is a platform and a service for schools that want to use learning analytics to improve and to transform. And the way we do that is we start by collecting all of your data that you have in the school, not just academic data, but also demographic data, well-being data, all the different data that you have. And then we collaborate with you to figure out the best way to present that data as information. And then we teach users at your school how to use that information to gain insight about your learners, because we believe that's what has the most impact on student outcomes, on teaching and learning, and on your school. So we have well over 100 pre-built visualizations on the LAC platform, and each one of them is customized to answer the questions that schools have. So you can see we have dashboards for teachers to be able to see different assessments in one place for their whole class. We've got dashboards for specialists, so you can see the impact of your interventions on students. We've got dashboards for admin and board, HR, marketing, those higher level aggregate dashboards for people that need that information. And of course, we have dashboards for parents and students so they can see one student's learning over time. We've got over 50 schools in our collaborative, and they're from all over the world. And we're all about sharing the learning, as I mentioned before. So when one school develops a new visualization or a new protocol for talking about data, we share that information with other schools so that everyone can learn and grow. And of course, one of the best ways to share this is in this summit that we're having right now this week. And I'm so excited to introduce to you our next speaker. This is Katie Main. She is sorry, I had to move my slide so I could see. She is the Director of Learning and Innovation at Nishimachi International School in Tokyo. And Nishimachi has been an LAC partner school for a number of years now, and they're really working on making it a personalized partnership and really making sure that the LAC is customized to work for them and to allow them to use that data to personalize learning for their students. So I'm really excited to hand over to Katie.
Thank you, Emma. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. It's great that you could join us today. I'm just going to share my screen with you and to let you know that these slides will be available after the session today. They'll be up on the speaker profile. But yeah, so thanks to LAC for having me to speak, to share a little bit about what we're currently doing at my school on sharing data to personalize learning, working with our community of teachers and students to do that. But before I get started into those details, just a little bit of background information about me. So my role, as Emma said, is Director of Learning and Innovation. So that means I work very closely with the principal and the head of school to oversee learning and teaching for our kindergarten students right the way through to our eldest grade 9 students. Our school is located in central Tokyo. I'm responsible for the curriculum development, the pedagogical, professional development of our teachers, how we integrate technology, and also a key part of my role is overseeing the school-wide internal and external assessments, the data collection and data analysis. So we're delighted to have a partnership with LAC, and that partnership has gone back a number of years. And I'd first like to tell you a little bit about our school context. So the way we approach data analysis, data collection, and we build our data culture in our school is intrinsically linked to how we approach our curriculum design and our pedagogical approaches to learning and teaching. One of our pillars of learning as a school is inquiry-based. And you can see from this cycle in the middle at the top that we use an inquiry cycle in how we plan collaboratively as teachers, and how we use data is also approached in a cyclical inquiry-based model. The visuals on your screen are just some real snapshots about what we really prize about curriculum and our school culture. On the top right, you could see our social character development for students, which is interwoven into all aspects of our curriculum, our learning experiences, and our reporting to parents. We actually report on these character profiles as well as reporting on academic data. We are a standards-based school. We use a lot of American curriculum standards to guide how we assess, how we plan. And we really find that the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN help craft our learning design to keep it meaningful for students and rooted in real-world experiences. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of background about the context of the school. And now I'd just like to invite you as part of this workshop to get involved, to add your voice if you would like to. There's no pressure to do so. But I've set up a Mentimeter survey, and it is crafted around this question: what does personalized learning mean to you? Before I launch into what I'd like to share with you today about personalized learning, I'd just like to hear from you. What does that mean to you? So you can either access that Mentimeter by scanning the QR code on your screen if you happen to have a phone or another device nearby. Or I think Emma's going to help me put in the chat the menti.com link. And if you just access menti.com and use the code on your screen to answer this question, what does personalized learning mean to you? It is going to start generating a word cloud of our answers. So I'll give you a moment to log in to that. What does personalized learning mean to you? I'll give you about 1 minute or so. Oh, great. So hopefully on your screen, you can now see that word cloud starting to grow. Oh, yes, we've got things like personalized learning is data informed, it's needs based, it is inclusive. Yeah, these are all great responses. Thank you for sharing. It's individualized. It's to do with goal setting and points of needs. We've got some people liking and adding more responses to that. Okay, fantastic. Keep those responses coming if you'd like to. And I'm just going to jump back into my presentation. The next thing I'd like to share with you is a short 30-second video clip from the late Sir Ken Robinson. And he shares a little bit about what personalized learning means and why it's important. So I'll just press that for you now.
It is the growing emphasis on personalization. So personalization has become a key theme, and it means various things. It means helping children to explore their own interests, and they are as different as there are children in the world, just as that's true of adults. It means helping children develop and evolve and apply their own very individual talents. You only have to cast your eyes around the world to see how multifarious and bountiful human talents and achievements and passions really are. And there's also a growing recognition that children learn in different ways. There isn't a single measure of ability. We all have a profile of talents and competencies which education ought to be promoting and developing.
Okay. So really, one of the goals of this session today is to share a little bit about personalized learning and how we use data to build cultures of collaboration at our school. I'll be sharing some experiences, and my main aim is to really inspire some reflection for you as educators to see how you are building data cultures in your school. I'm not presenting that we've got it all perfect and figured out yet, but there's so much wisdom that can be shared amongst us as colleagues in this Zoom call, and for those joining us later online, hopefully you will take away something about the importance of personalizing learning to cater to the student needs and interests and learning styles, and how when we use data, we need to really keep the student at the center and the focus of everything that we are doing. And we need to have the end goal in mind with why are we collecting this data in the first place. So the three areas on your screen are the three pedagogical pillars that guide our practice at Nishimachi International School. As I mentioned, we're an inquiry-driven school, but we actually have personalized learning as one of our pillars. It guides all our decision-making as leaders. It guides the crafted learning experiences. And it is so intrinsically important to us as a learning community that it is actually identified in our pillars of learning, along with being a community-oriented school. So the reason why we've chosen personalized, we want to really understand the strengths and the areas of growth for all of our students. We value that we have a diverse population in our student body, and we embrace that diversity. We understand that a one-size-fits-all assessment is not appropriate. It's not going to cater to the wide-ranging needs of our students. We value the use of formative assessment. We want to use assessments to meet student needs, like academic needs, but we also place high value on understanding the students' attitudes to school, their confidence in their abilities, their relationships with their teachers, because we really believe that as we know about our students and we care about them as students in their learning, but as individuals, we can take action that's really going to make a difference to students' futures and futures, not just academically, but their development and growth. So hopefully that explains a little bit about why personalized learning matters. I'm going to jump straight into some information about how we triangulate certain data that we collect as a school. So I think often education systems can measure or can focus on measuring attainment in this bottom blue section of this graphic, which the source is on your screen for that, with a link if you'd like to see more information. So attainment data, as I'm sure many of us are aware, can be end of term assessments, end of year assessments, a snapshot of a student's ability to remember facts, to memorize information, and to apply their understanding in a standardized test scenario often. It's a single point of data, and it is impacted a lot by how that student is feeling on the day. Whether the student has eaten breakfast that day, how did they get to school? Were they late? Were they on time? How are they getting on with their friendship groups? We don't know all of that from the test score. So we need to bear all of that in mind when we're triangulating data about student progress. Also, in this top green area, the ability section, as a learning community, we have been trialing and experimenting with different ways that we can actually measure whether the student attainment matches the student's potential, whether that is the student's personal excellence. Are they reaching their potential? Are we maximizing their abilities as learners? Which of our learners have got high attainment and high ability? Which of our students have got lower attainment but higher ability? And how are we stretching, how are we developing our programs of study to ensure that we're catering for the wide range of abilities that our students have? This requires a lot of cross-referencing of data, and LIC have been super helpful with helping us kind of map and overlay different types of standardized assessments that we use with the socio-emotional data that we collect, as well as the ability data that we collect. And I'll share a little bit more about that later on. And I mentioned some of the barriers of learning. How are our students feeling about themselves as learners? Do they connect with their teachers? Is the learning relevant? Is it meaningful? Is it based on student interests? Have we asked the students how they feel that they can best show their progress in a certain area of the curriculum? And are we assessing all areas of the curriculum in an even way, or are we more heavily weighted to assessing reading, writing, mathematics, and science? And if we are so, does that really meet the needs of all our students who are excelling in performing arts, in sports across the curriculum? How do we measure the success and growth for those students as well? So in my role, I find that we collect a lot of data, a lot of raw data through standardized assessments about students, but we have work to do in turning that data into useful information that guides our programs. And I think all of us as educators know there's always something we can do to better improve in those areas. And a way that we guide all of our approaches to assessment is keeping the holistic student development at the center. We talk with our faculty a lot about not referring to students as numbers or data points or certain percentiles. We're looking at the individual. We want to see the whole child from the information that we draw from our assessments. And I think this quote summarizes that quite well. So how can we build cultures of data usage in school that are going to impact student learning? In my current school setting, this is the wide range of assessment data that we're collecting. You can see we've got the map growth, map fluency, Hegarty phonics. We've got Japanese language proficiency test information, and that all identifies student attainment. Okay, that tells us what can the students do. We can measure their growth between different points of the year. But the CAT4 data is what we use to measure ability, the academic potential of students. And we can compare that, as I've mentioned. The data that we always start with, though, we keep at the center, is our PASS data. That stands for Pupil Attitudes to Self and School. And some of the data sets that I'm going to share with you today, the visualizations of those are really quite impacting. And if we use this as a springboard for all of the other assessment information that we're collecting, it gives us a completely different lens through which to analyze and to take action on that data. Other points of data that I haven't mentioned is Pivot. So that is a survey that we use to collect information on how well the students are connecting with their teachers. And that is not shared with our leadership. That is just for the teacher's personal information. The students are surveyed, asked some questions. How engaged are they? How meaningful is the learning? How comfortable do they feel expressing their opinions and ideas in certain lessons? And that's really, really useful for the teachers to modify practice and to reflect on the learning and the assessments that they're setting. We also have the WIDA international assessment that helps us identify student needs for our multilingual learners as well. So our journey for personalizing learning and building data cultures is currently at the point where we're bringing in the experts. We're bringing in professionals to help us learn as a community the data that we should be collecting alongside the data that we are. And on your screen, you could see Trevor Mackenzie, who's a well-known, world-renowned author, consultant, speaker. We flew him in to Tokyo and hosted a conference for schools across Japan. And we have developed our approaches to learning and from our assessments based on some of the expertise he shared. And I'd love to kind of plug his book, Inquiry Mindset Assessment Edition, because that's been a really powerful tool for us as a learning community on how we gather information about students in terms of connecting with students on their passions and their interests, their personal learning goals, not the goals that we as students, we as teachers have selected for the students, but really connecting and understanding our students as the basis for our data collection. So if you'd like to find out more, I've put some links on the screen there to more of that work. Okay, so as you can see from this quote, all we have without our data is opinion. And we try to remove personal opinion from our data collection whenever we embark upon the inquiry process to developing our data-driven dialogues. You'll see on the left of your screen our learning and teaching inquiry cycle, and you'll see on the right of your screen a data dialogue inquiry cycle. So when we approach data with our teachers, we begin with questioning. So questioning is a key part of our curriculum. It's a key part of how we design learning experiences for students. And we ask our teachers, what do they notice? What do they see? What do they wonder about the data? Before we dive into, oh, that child, that happened because of this reason. We want to make sure that we're noticing and we're wondering and we're being curious rather than jumping to any conclusions. And some data protocols that we have found and adapted from places like School Reform Initiative and things that we've devised in-house. They help guide our discussions around any data that we are looking at as a team, a leadership team, a grade level teaching team, or a cross section of the school, looking at how are our students doing? How are they feeling? How are they performing in assessments? How are they performing in class? And these two examples that you see are quite guided processes. And after the prediction phase or after the wondering phase, we jump into visualizations. And that is where LAC have really helped us with the visualizations that they offer. We work to personalize with them. And we ask our teachers, what do you see? Are there any patterns or insights that you can visually see on this visual representation? Do you notice any gaps? Do you notice any patterns? Are there any emerging trends that you can see or any notable omissions that stand out? And this has been really well received by our teaching teams and a guided protocol that develops a collaborative culture around data analysis. In our school, we make sure that data is not just presented to teachers, teachers are involved in the analysis and they are involved in that because they are the ones who are student facing. They are the ones who are going to be using this data to personalize experiences for students and to hopefully meet their needs. So a short activity for us to do just now, maybe personally, privately, if you've got a paper beside you or a device. I'm going to use the thinking routine, see, think, and wonder. So on your screen, you've got two data visualizations, which represent two different students. The one on the left has been at the school for 3 years. The one at the right has been at the school for 2 years. And you can see from the color coding, you can see from the subheadings, what this data is sharing. PASS, as I mentioned, stands for pupil attitudes to self and school. So I'll just give you about 1 minute to have a look at this, to think about any patterns, noticings, wonders that you see. And you're welcome to share anything in the chat if you'd like to. There is no requirement to do so.
I'll just jump in because why not? I see the student on the left. I notice that they've got a dip in semester 1, 22, 23. And I really wonder what happened with that student there. You know, is it something with friendship, something going on at home? But it seems to affect like so much about their life at school. But then they bounced back.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Emma. Yeah, so my eye is immediately drawn to those orange sections, closely followed by the yellow sections for both students. And I'm wondering, you know, again, what could have happened to cause the student to answer those questions on that day in that particular way? Is it something ongoing? Do the students' advisors know what's going on? Who could we ask for more information? Is it easily explained, or is it something that we really need to monitor and keep an eye on? Because this is the building blocks for the student's success and their confidence at school day to day. So I think these visual representations, even the color coding or the way that the data is presented, is really useful for initial thoughts and wonders. Okay, the next one, I've removed the key just to depersonalize. I've removed the legend, but this is another form of data visualization that we use with our teachers. And this would be for maybe a grade level specific team. The different bars would represent different assessments that were taken during those years. And the lines would represent some averages. If we are looking across different cohorts of schools, or if we're comparing ourselves with average data. And we'd often ask teachers, again, what do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder? Looking at the bigger picture and also going into the granular details around these, because these are averages. Obviously, there are students who achieved more, who achieved less, and what were the factors that contributed to that. So again, just another couple of examples. When I talk about data visualizations, these are the types of visualizations that we mean. This is comparing fall and spring data for one particular grade level. Useful for teachers, useful for leaders. But one of the ways that we have been working with LAC to really develop our personalized learning pillar is to develop what we term in-house as student hockey cards. And they're designed to be a one-stop shop of a snapshot of each student and include all their historical data that we have collected on them throughout their tenure with us at the school. Now, this is a modified version of what's available on the LAC site. And the reason we've modified it is so that we can easily print it out, have it available in a very downloadable format for our teachers. But it is live on the LAC and is constantly updated as we complete new assessments. So for a particular child, any teacher or any adult, counselor, faculty member, any subject teacher can go into the student hockey cards and see how that student is feeling about school, what their cognitive abilities test results were on a certain year, how they're doing with the different standardized assessments that we have administered, all with a view to how can I further support this child? What can I do to personalize learning for this student even further? So that's a really helpful tool. So yeah, in summary, I would say that the main things that have really helped us build cultures of data usage at our school is, well, they include keeping the students at the center of every data discussion. You know, we're not talking about numbers on a page or numbers in an Excel sheet exclusively. We're talking about children who have been entrusted to us for the socio-emotional development as well as the academic achievement and attainment. And something that has really helped us as a school is building that collaborative culture where all teachers and leaders are involved in the discussions, they're involved in the analysis, and their voice is valued in that in that scenario. They have something to contribute, regardless of their role at the school. The teachers will know the students a lot better than the administrators will know them because of the face-to-face contact they have. But the administrators will be able to see those trends over time, that longitudinal data. What are we noticing as a school, and how can we guide our strategic plan and our strategic intents? Where do we need to review our curriculum or inject some fresh professional learning that will feed into that personalization for students? And the final thing to mention is that comparability of data over time is intrinsically important for our teachers, for our leaders. And through that collaborative culture and that data-rich dialogue that we are developing, we are seeing greater opportunities to personalize learning and to make an impact for our student community. So I'll leave you with this interesting, provocative quote. Data is like garbage. You better know what you're going to do with it before you collect it. We do not want to be data rich and information poor as educators. We want to make sure we're collecting the right data and we're using it effectively, we're using it efficiently, and it's having an impact rather than just being housed somewhere. It is actually used in a meaningful way. So if you have any questions or any feedback, I will leave the menti.com information there. I'd love to hear any feedback you have, any useful takeaways that you have from the session today, or any further questions you may have. I'd be happy to answer those for you. But thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. I'll hand back over to Emma.
Thank you so much, Katie. I think it's where everyone's on a journey, right? And part of figuring out how to use data and how to be data informed. I think we've often got that cognitive dissonance where as you mentioned earlier, I don't want to reduce my students to numbers. My students are more than their map results. And there's this shift where we start to understand that the more we know about our students, the more we can meet them where they're at and really get to know them. And sometimes what we think we know about them isn't supported by data, and we have to dig harder and dig harder, dig deeper. And so I think you've given us a really great example of how you've managed to get a whole community of educators to make that shift and start seeing data as a tool in our toolbox, and an important, an essential tool in our toolbox, rather than something that's going to, be harmful or be used as a tool to judge educators. It's everyone's able to see the benefit of it. So thank you so much for showing us that.
Thank you. Thanks, Emma, for having me. And I hope we can continue to work together in partnership and learn from each other as educators, because as I said before, there's so much expertise and so much wisdom. So I hope the little nuggets that I've shared today just prompt some reflection and maybe prompt some ideas on how we keep students at the center of everything we do.
Absolutely. And I really want to give a plug as well to Matthew Savage's keynote from yesterday. If you haven't watched that one yet, go and watch that video, because so much overlap with what Katie's talking about. And we're working on some collaborations with Matthew to try and look at past and other attainment data. It's very exciting. So yeah, check those out. All right.